Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Howdy all, red.olaughlin here. And today on The Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network, I am super honored to have a fellow host of the USA Global TV and Radio Network. She's also an award-winning author of the book Live for Joy, motivational life coach, international tour guide, the founder of the Podcast Maestro, and Scottlin. Please join us.
Hi, Red.
Howdy.
How are you?
Exceptionally well, as always.
Good. Wow, you found the tour guide piece. I don't know how long it's been since I've heard that one read out. That's impressive.
Well, I was doing some research on you. I'm going here, going there, and trying to pick out little bits and pieces of things. That sounds interesting. Why don't we start there? Because that's an old topic and something that's way back when, but obviously you must have had one or two really good tour places that you've been to. Where are they at?
Oh my goodness. So many. Probably one of the favorite tours. So I used to lead tours. One of my degrees was in history. I have a master's in history and medieval history. And so we would lead tour guides. We'd lead tours in different countries. One of my favorite tours was Turkey, because as you know, it is rife with Roman history, ruins, fantastic architecture, and a beautiful country. So that's just one of many places that I love taking people and just really diving into, at the time, both Christian history and ancient history. It was a really fun time.
Why medieval history? What really piques your interest there?
You know, I started out in like Renaissance Reformation history because it was an area I was already really interested in. And then I started realizing that it was so done, like so many people had researched it and done thesis on it. And it's never really done, but I'm like, I kind of want to go sooner. I want to see what got us to that point. And I started digging in, became very fascinated with medieval government, with the Vikings, with authors, writers, historians of the time. My thesis ended up being on medieval women writers, which was an award-winning thesis. And hopefully one day I'm actually going to make that a little more fun and readable and turn it into a book, because it's actually fascinating. And in a time where women weren't allowed to publish at all, how a handful were able to get their work out and keep their name on it.
You started out a long time ago in Hollywood and picked up just a massive amount of knowledge and experience that you're using nowadays to help other people. So why don't we jump back a little bit into Hollywood? What did you learn that you're applying to your business today?
Well, definitely production. Obviously, as an actress, also a director and a producer. I know I've had a very nonlinear career, but it's been loads of fun. So production is become, a real passion of mine. I've done it for a very long time. And I've done my own podcasts, my own video podcasts for so many years now. I realized there was a huge opportunity for people to up their production value, and also for people who would love to be doing it and, become more influential influencers, but just don't have the time to put it together. So yes, production is amazing. I love reaching people all over the world. I love working with international people. I had the opportunities when I was working in Hollywood as an actress to shoot some international films. some humanitarian subjects, and really enjoyed that as well. So again, I think on my profile it says, where are you from? And I think I say global citizen because that's kind of what I feel like.
Okay, so your business today as the founder of the Podcast Maestro, we hear the term podcast, and for some of us, all we think of is audio. But you also use the term in your last little answer was podcast video. Is there
Yeah.
really is that the evolution that all podcasts now are going to be eventually video? Or what's the distinction there between that video podcast and the audio podcast within the terminology of podcast?
Sure. So yes, so there's very similar names for these different services, and some of them overlap. So digital streaming TV is very much aligned with, in many cases, includes in its spectrum of services what people might call a video podcast. So these kind of open discussions, call-in shows, guests, whatever that is, those kind of podcasts are becoming more and more and more popular. A lot of people who were doing audio only are switching over. And I think there's always room for both, but I think the trend right now is your face and your personality is so much a part of your brand that for some people like myself, like being engaged in that, feeling like you're face to face with people is something valuable, and it contributes to my ability to reach them. That's my experience. Also, when you're driving in the car, you can always listen to a podcast that's a video, but you can't be at home and watch a podcast that's audio only. So everything has its own role, but I think the best way to go right now, as podcasts are incredibly popular and so streaming TV, this is kind of a perfect marriage of the two.
I was in my research, you mentioned that there was a real valuable lesson you learned very early in your podcast career. You had this super guest on your show, and wonderful show, but you forgot to hit the record button.
Yes, it's so mortifying. And I tell that story a lot because I tell people how valuable it is to, as you know, and have, to have a producer. And, you have Jacqueline producing this show, and she's amazing. But for people who aren't familiar with doing this and don't really know what they're doing, yeah, a producer would have never let that go forward, right? You have someone handling all the checks and balances. And for me, my goal is always to produce world-class product, and you can't risk having those kinds of mess ups when you're streaming live. So having a producer is really vital. Or even pre-recording, it's still vital because you still might not hit the record button. And then what are you going to do? Try to get a high profile guest back that already had the same conversation with you? That's a little, So yeah, it's just part of my business saying, how can we make you a global influencer in a world-class way?
So the experience you picked up a long time ago, being in front of the camera, knowing what's required, being able to say, this is going to look a little bit better here. I can make you the star of the show because you do this and this. So those are all the things you're bringing to the table when somebody says, yeah, I have this program, the Podcast Maestro, and this is what I do, and this is why I do it, and this is why it's so successful.
Yes, exactly. And I cover so many different aspects, I think, as I said at the beginning, from preparation to production to promotion. I don't offer a la carte services. It's really that plug and play concept where I do everything for the client, and then basically, they choose platforms like this one, USA Global Network, to stream, and others as well, possibly. And they just show up. I can prepare their outlines if they want. I don't research their own guests typically, but oftentimes they have those people in mind, or they're not doing guests at all. Full production, pre, during, post production, and then promotion. So those people, if they're so busy that they don't have time to do all of this themselves, they also typically don't want to worry about having to post and promote their show. So that we're able to go ahead and do that for them on their social media and a variety of other places to just get the word out there for them. So that is basically what it is. If someone wants to just I would love to take my brand, my name, or my global message. It can be anything from inspirational to a sales opportunity. I want it to go global, and I want to garner the attention that I feel like this subject really deserves.
How long are your typical podcasts? I know some are 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 2 hours. What's the ideal spot for somebody for a podcast? What's the ideal time?
There really is no ideal time. I've had conversations with so many people about this, and it really depends on the host. It depends on the content. It depends on the audience. Some people can have a 5 or 10 minute podcast, and and they do it every single day. That's great. Maybe that's just your bite of information for the day. Other people are going into technical, scientific, historical, psychological discussions that go really deep, and you need the majority of an hour to do that. Anything over an hour, in my opinion, is a little excessive. Most often, people will listen to at least the first few minutes, and then they often drift away. So my philosophy has always been keep it short and sweet, not more than an hour. A lot of people that I work with keep it under 20 minutes, like 25 minutes, which if you have a whole panel of guests, you do need that hour. But if you're just a solo host or a co-host, or you have one guest, then the short version, you can pack everything in, keep it moving. People don't get bored. You don't waste their time, and you're kind of in, out, and done. And they get all the information that they still could have listened to over the course of a whole hour. So it really depends on the person, the subject, and the host.
You were talking a moment ago about you can listen to the podcast in the car driving. You can watch a video when you're sitting home at TV. Yeah, when I'm doing prep for cooking, I'll have a TED Talk on or something that I can listen to that I don't necessarily need to see, but I can hear. And sometimes they have displays on the screen, but most of those are generally in that 10 to 15 minute range, and they're covering a specific topic. It's not a whole bunch. So you may have 5 different TED Talks by the same person, but slightly different approaches to it. So to me, on that podcast, depending on, am I trying to tell the world about me and my brand and my value, then maybe I do need a half hour or more. But if I'm just sitting here, hey, let's talk about medieval history in Turkey back 500,000 years ago. That could be a 10-minute topic of summary, or it could be a 2-hour event, depending on how deep you wanted to go in things. So as you
Absolutely.
say, it really does matter what is the mission of that particular podcast.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, and I think there's a place for everything. And ways to reuse it too. So other things that we do, which Jacqueline offers different services like this, I believe, as well, is with mine. It's all a comprehensive package, but pull footage from those videos, from those, and have those clips ready to produce, as well as to promote on social media, to promote on your website. So whether it's 30 minutes or 2 hours, you have so much content that you can reuse. One of my favorite themes in the business world is always never work harder than you have to. Use the footage and content you create in every possible way. Don't do the same work twice, over and over again. So if I have this show, your guest today, I promote it. It's streaming live on my networks. It's streaming live here, and then afterwards, promoting it on social media. You can pull clips, like put on the website. There's endless uses. You can pull quotes. You can have transcripts. So having a podcast, and especially a video podcast, although I will do audio only, but I prefer to producing video, is a great way to really expand your message, your brand, exponentially, because doing a 20-minute taping session can turn into so much content over so many platforms that it's really quite astonishing. I mean, you can even turn into segments for workshops. You can turn it into an online course on your website. It's amazing what can be done.
So you have a podcast that is being manipulated in various ways for promotional purposes. You're marketing that product, that brand, that person, the value, that whatever it may happen to be. So let's talk a little bit about promotions. Obviously, you've been in the business long enough. You know what works, where to go to, boom, boom, boom. But that's not the norm for most people. So how how do you actually go about marketing so that we kind of gain some value from your experience? So let's say I'm on your show and we're done. It's a 25-minute show. Boom. What would you do with our video that we would be doing? So I have some idea of where's this thing
Sure.
going.
Yeah. Well, first of all, depending on like the package you're looking for, we decide, is it video, and are we going to add audio as a value? Because there's different platforms in many cases for airing audio only and video. For example, I air both in as many places as possible, and I know that that's essentially available here too, especially with USA Global Network, TV and radio, where you can have audio. Even on my private platforms, I'll air video and audio. YouTube, for example, which is a great platform. We can have video. That's what it's made for. But they now have a podcast audio only section. So I want to make sure that your content is on both of those, so it's streaming on both. Are there any other audio networks? So really it starts with, how wide can we disperse your content? That's the first question. And what are all the destinations that are the most useful for you? And after that, it's pulling clips for you, pulling clips from it, finding those different kinds of clips, right? So one thing I like to do is having a coming up clip. If it's a show that's aired and I'm airing it again, coming up clip, which, has a little clip from the show, something usually personal, funny, entertaining to kind of get people involved. Or even before you tape a live streaming show, we'll do a coming up, which is a pre-recorded clip of like, here's the highlights of the show. You want to hook people into the show with that. First of all, that very first introduction, like, today, this is what we're going to be talking about. You're not going to want to miss it. And then you want sort of a cliffhanger hook, for lack of a better word, which is, how do you keep them listening? How do you keep them engaged until the end? So coming up with, either a pre-recorded or clip, or something that you say during the introduction in a live stream that says, hang around until the end for this free offer, or for 5 ways to do XYZ that you probably never dreamed of. Get people engaged to not turn it off. So literally all of this, which isn't a direct answer to your question yet, but these are like the things we haven't even gotten to additional promotion yet. This is like before we even get to things like pulling those clips for social media, promoting them, offering clips for the website, creating similar content and pulling it together. You could have composite clips that turn into a course, for example. We have AI transcripting, which is so helpful. So you can pull from that and create courses or even podcasts or specials, literally by subject, just by searching the words and finding those best clips. So that's just the tip of the iceberg. But when I say comprehensive, it's really comprehensive.
I noticed that one of the people I follow a lot, Gary V, on LinkedIn, he has these very short video clips, can be 10, 15 seconds most of the time, but also with the audio, the text underneath as he's up there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you get 500,000 people, they'll like, comment, whatever. And so it's very, very effective, those very short video clips, literally just seconds for practical purposes, because there's a value in what is being said that appeals to a very large audience. So, and that's part of what your job is, picking that value out of what was said and putting it into the audience that will see it. And that's
a different audience sometimes. Sorry, I didn't interrupt. And a different audience sometimes, because there's people who, my wonderful, wonderful husband, for example, who is an incredibly productive human being and so ADD, and I say that with love, that he can't listen to a show for 30 minutes. Like, he can't. But say he still had something really valuable and he should have a podcast because he's an expert in a particular area. My goodness, this guy is an expert in a bazillion things he could pick. He used to be a Civil War reenactor. I can't even begin to tell you, he's a pilot. Just the guy has more hobbies than I've, ever. So he could pick any subject. So he might want to use my services for recording and production, but he's not going to listen to an hour-long show of mine. But if he happens to follow me on social media and he sees a 60-second clip where he understands what I offer, and how I could be helpful or contribute, then I can get a client out of that too. So your audience can be completely different. The people who listen to the hour are often different from the people who are listening to those 30-second, 60-second clips.
Okay, let's bounce over to another area of your life. You were at one point in time, I don't know if you still are, a motivational life coach.
Yes,
Tell us,
I've been a coach for a long time.
so tell us a little bit about that, because then I want to get into your author as your Live for Joy.
Oh, yes. Oh, exciting. That'll be fun. So I started coaching, I don't know, my goodness, probably 10 to 15 years ago, near the beginning of my career. It started out coaching the business side of acting to actors and creatives. So a lot of creatives don't have the business wherewithal to help promote themselves, and you really are an independent contractor. So I was, involved in acting, and I taught the art a bit, but mostly I was focused on helping them learn the business side, how to promote themselves, how to get noticed, how to get into Hollywood and be recognized by the right people and to get work, which many of them did. So that was how it really started. I always had a gift, a natural gift for teaching and training. I mean, since I was very young, I won't even like 12, where there were opportunities in my community or my church or something where I would be teaching and training. Like that's just been part of me my whole life. So that then continued on with a combination of even when I was no longer coaching for a TV production studio, I was continuing to coach people on the business side, entrepreneurs, self-employed people, as well as just creatives. And then I went and got my certification at the Executive College of Coaching there in Santa Barbara, California. So I could take it up a notch to the business executives, and ever since, as a combination of that business and personal coaching that really helps you hit peak performance. And literally one of my very favorite things in the world to do. I have so much fun with my clients, and like that is the highlight of my day, my coaching, whenever that I'm working with a client.
Now, did your book Live for Joy come out of your motivational life coaching experiences?
Yeah, it did. And also just my own sort of natural tilt toward philosophy, spirituality, the universe. I started a Twitter feed back in, I think it was 2017. Now has like over 120,000 followers. And on that feed, I started posting motivational quotes written by myself, which sounds incredibly weird and vain and ego. And it was very awkward and uncomfortable for you just to say at the beginning, like, but I had to put my name on it. For a long time, I didn't. And finally, I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my name on here because this is really good stuff. And I don't want people to just throw it away and attribute it to anybody. And I usually accompanied it with beautiful visuals, with art, photography, so that there was, I'm talking about, I could take 2 hours to create a 3-line post. This was really in-depth, very intentional, conscious creation of content. And people really found it motivational, inspirational, encouraging. I talk a lot about nature and how that works with your soul, spirit, awareness, whatever you want to call that. I talk a lot about dealing with darkness and depression in positive ways, to find ways to give back and help yourself become more involved with everyone around you, and become a real contributing citizen. So after a while, people started saying to me, hey, this is really good stuff. You should really, really put a book out like this. I was like, just a kind of quotes, some of them are a sentence or two, but basically I would take information and compress it into as short a section as I possibly could. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And ironically, the book came out during COVID, but it had been already in production before COVID happened. But it ended up being a perfect timing, because Live for Joy was a great topic for people struggling with so many things, with depression, isolation, changes in their job, their family, their work and life environment. So it really did come out at just the perfect time. And it's a beautiful book. I'm so proud of this book. It has nothing to do with podcasting. It is absolutely gorgeous, has full page photographs and art and things that really stimulate your mind. Like you could just look at the picture and go away with something, or you can read the quote and go away with something. And if you look at them together, they absolutely reflect each other. They are not abstract. The picture lends weight to the quote lends weight to the picture. And there's 12 chapters on everything from how to motivate yourself to being a being a world citizen. What does that mean to really care about your neighbor, no matter who they are, and find those commonalities that really bind us all together, the beauty of art and nature and human smile. And even the last chapter, chapter 12, which is called Learn to Love the Endings, because that's something like we often forget when we're talking about motivation and inspiration, is like, but then people still live in like dread of the endings of a relationship or perfect health or many other things, a job. And so how can you learn to love the ending? So it's very philosophical, but also very practical, which is sort of ironic. But I'm sure it appeals to a certain kind of person. But most of my fans that have it and love it, they keep it on their coffee table, their bedside table, in their kitchen. It's one of those things you just pick up. You can read one quote that day or a chapter, or just it's kind of just there for you. So it's been a wonderful experience. And just last night, you're going to laugh because this is so funny. I was cleaning my coffee table. And of course, I keep a hardcover copy on my coffee table. And I was cleaning the coffee table and I sat down and I was like, I wonder if this friend of mine who's going through stage 4 cancer right now, if she ever bought this book. And I texted her and she hadn't. And I was like, okay, I'm mailing that to her right now. And then I started reading for myself. And it sounds hilarious because I think these principles stand the test of time. I got inspired from some of these things that I've created. I still read my own book and find value, organic, authentic value in it. Because, those moments of wisdom you might have had, and this is the wise ones, right? So those moments of wisdom you've had in the past, sometimes you forget in the chaos of the moment. And you're like, that's right. I don't need to stress about everything. The world will continue to spin. Like it just helps to kind of get you grounded and centered and find healing and joy. So Live for Joy, that's the book.
Are any of the photographs in there yours?
In this case, there wasn't. And part of the problem is I love doing photography, but I haven't had a professional camera for a long time. So most of my phone photos weren't worthy to be blown up into full size images. So I had to work with a lot of artists and photographers and get permission to use their work or buy their work, however that worked, to find it. But it was very tempting when it was just on social media. Yes, a lot of images were actually mine because I would often be inspired directly from nature or art or animals with the thought that started coming together and eventually became a quote, if you will. And so I would sometimes post those together, like close-ups of an amazing flower or mist on a rainy day over a lake, or just those things that kind of you're like, this is a really special moment. How is this affecting me mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and creating something out of that. So yeah, some of them are mine, but not in the book.
I can imagine in your tour guide days that you must have thousands of pictures from all over the world. Many
yes.
are probably very, very high quality. Would love to be in a book someday. Who knows what? But with your travel, I'm sure that's probably a good lead-in for the next topic I want to go to. You list yourself as a gastronomy aficionado.
Well, this is kind of funny because I love to eat. And I'm a vegetarian. So this is a really odd combination for being a world traveler because weirdly enough, while I very much align with philosophy of vegetarians who don't eat meat for specific ecological or animal rights or reasons, which I do also align with, it isn't why I became a vegetarian. I was raised a vegetarian. A very strict vegetarian in the sense that I can't eat meat because it freaks me out. You get used to your thing, right? It's like giving a real meat eater a veggie hot dog. Like they're going to be freaked out too, but for more so because for me, meat was an animal, whatever. So, and I'm a huge animal lover. So I did force myself to eat a little chicken and fish back in the day for a year or two while I was, doing some weightlifting and training, but I just couldn't keep it up. I just couldn't do it. So that said, I love to cook. I love gourmet food. I love trying unusual things. I love immersing myself in the food culture of whatever country or environment I find myself. I find that is such a sort of organic and intimate connection to the people of the place. It's kind of a window into their life, their soul, what makes them tick. Food is such a communal thing where we all get to share it. People are always willing to talk about it, to share it. If you love their food, if you want to hear what's in it, if you're asking them if this recipe came from, someone they knew in the past, it's just a great way to be a world citizen, to just jump in. And, sometimes I travel with mortification if I'm around other people, let's just leave it at that, who speak my language, who I hear complaining loudly in a foreign restaurant and, being really obnoxious. And I'm like, this isn't your backyard. This isn't your suburban neighborhood chain restaurant. Why are you here? Why are you here? You should understand how important it is to connect with humans. But most people are so much about themselves, right? And I'm fascinated by human beings. And to me, food is a very pleasurable way of connecting to human beings and also having some more joy in my life.
I lived in Europe toward the end of the 90s for a couple of years in Germany. And I've had some experiences over there that some are super funny. I mean, my wife and I were in Venice. We went into this one local restaurant there, ordered a glass of wine, and then they came by for the meal. I said, no, we're just here for the wine. They literally threw us out because you do not just order wine, you have to order food. It's a cultural thing. If I want wine by itself, I got to go to a hotel or someplace. But on my way, every weekend, just about, I would drive somewhere. And one of the places I love to go is Italy. And on the way back in Austria, there was one place I would always stop at because they had cream of garlic soup. Oh. And it's just amazing. And I've looked for recipes. There's some things that you can get overseas that you almost can't even find on the internet. And salmon pasta to me is one of the best dishes ever because I love salmon. You make a salmon sauce, everything's there. It's great, but it's not available in the U.S. I can buy it in Japan, Korea, all over Italy and Germany. So it's interesting how some dishes are really and truly, they're outstanding, but as Americans, we don't even know they exist.
Well, and I think that's what's so exciting. And maybe it's even more exciting for me as a vegetarian because when I go to a restaurant, my food choices go down to like this, depending on the restaurant, right? So I have a limited choice. So anytime I can have something new and different that also fits my eating lifestyle, that's super exciting for me. Like last night, I made a miso soup just out of things in my fridge, and that was my dinner with tofu and noodles and onions, and it was absolutely delicious. I was like, why don't I do this more often? But at least I knew what that was, and I knew that you can. And I'm very much about customizing. I think authentic recipes have their place, but I think once you fall in love with a cuisine, I love Indian cuisine, for example. Once you're cooking it at home, if you love to cook like I do, you can start, tweaking it and really making it yours. And that's the best of it. You're bringing another culture into your home and also making it something that you really, really enjoy yourself. So yes, it's amazing. And if I don't think I can ever drive past an international grocery store. It calls to me like with giant tentacles, like I have to go in because I always find something different or packaged. Or here's a really funny example, but like the Japanese, I can't think of the brand right now, but they make an incredible butter cookie to go with your tea, for example, or whatever, right? And I've loved butter cookies or butter wafers forever and ever. I love the British ones. But the butter tastes so different in the Japanese ones. Like different parts of the world have different flavors of butter, which I learned early on in my travels of Europe. I realized that, British butter and Austrian butter taste completely different to me, so it's exciting. You can kind of play with it. And Indian food, I learned about ghee, right? Clarified butter, which I now put even in sweet dishes because it adds this richness and this flavor. So yeah, food is definitely one of the things that gets me excited, as you can see.
Well, since we're ending on a high note, I think what we're going to do now is 14,500 plus feet on Mount Whitney. There's a picture of you at the top. Is that another hobby of yours, is mountain climbing, or does that just happen to be a one-time thing?
I grew up hiking. I had parents who, it's very confusing. They kind of had a hippie outdoor lifestyle in a certain way, and yet my dad was an aerospace engineer. So I had a kind of confusing childhood. I was homeschooled till I was almost 16. We never went to Disneyland. That was not their idea of raising kids. But what I did get out of that was my huge love for nature. I was overnight backpacking by the time I was 6 years old in Mount Rainier National Park near Seattle, which is where I was born. We camped every single summer. From the time I was like 12 months old, which of course I don't remember, we were camping near Mount St. Helens or Mount Adams. That's right. Mount St. Helens was gone. Mount Adams. I was like 12 months old, camping in a tent when a bear came into the campsite and stole the gallon of milk off the picnic table. Like, these stories my parents would tell me, and I was like, who takes an infant to these places? So I grew up like this. This was my family's idea of fun, and hiking was a huge part of it. I lived way out in the country for several years, for about 7 years, from about ages 8 to 15, where there was literally almost no one. It's homeschooling, of course. And, you just get used to being very active in nature. And I love being physically active in nature. So when I was 19, since Mount Rainier and near Seattle was one of our favorite places to go, my dad and my brother and we climbed it. That's like a 2 to 3 day thing because it's ice and glaciers, and it's 14,400 something feet. It was very, very difficult. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, with my husband and couple of our friends, we did Mount Whitney, which is just trail hiking, but the air gets very thin at 14,000 feet. So you kind of become it's a whole different experience. But I like doing challenging things. I like overcoming those challenges and getting to the top. That's my personality. So if nothing else, whether I enjoyed the entire journey or not, I sure do enjoy getting there.
Let me make a recommendation. If you ever get down to Machu Picchu in Peru, the mountain you see in the pictures behind it's called Huayna Picchu. It's about 1,000 feet higher. You have to go down 500 feet and then you go up again. Mm-hmm. But you can literally, as you were standing on Mount Whitney, you can stand literally on the top. It's not very big, maybe about 30 feet across in a circle. You can have a dozen or so people there pretty easily. But you can look down on Machu Picchu. And it's about a 45-minute climb. It's not real bad, but they don't let you up there after a certain time in the afternoon because they want to make sure everybody's safe. They've left people there overnight. But anyway, that might be something in your international travels in the future. Put that on your list to consider, because a lot of people get there and they don't know that there's so many other things that they can be doing. So I'll throw that one out for what it might be worth.
That's a great idea. I will absolutely remember that. And I like the climbing time, because things like Mount Whitney, that was 17 hours round trip, 22 miles. So I think something like less than an hour, anything sounds amazing. I think that I'm going for those mountains next.
But we're toward the end of our show now. And how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in your podcast services, if they want to buy your book? What's the best place for them to reach you?
Absolutely. So you can always pop over to my website, which is just my name.com. So that's ANNESCOTTLIN, in case you're listening and not watching today, and Scottlin.com. You can pop on over there, see what's up with the Podcast Maestro. You can contact me there or directly via my email, which is contact@AnnScotland.com, if you're interested in a free consultation about the full plug and play production of video streaming, podcast videos. And the book is for sale on the website, or you can just pop over to Amazon, buy it there. Live for Joy by Ann Scottlin. And it's, I actually make less on the hardcover book, but I highly recommend the hardcover book. It's only a few dollars more, and it's something that you'll really cherish for a long time. It's a special experience. It's a beautiful book. Even if you don't open it, it's a beautiful book to have on your coffee table, but I highly recommend you open it. And there it is right there. Thank you so much.
For our audio audience, AnneScottlin.com. It's ANNE Scottlin, SCOTTLIN.com. So AnneScottlin.com. And I love today's show. We have way too many other things we could have also added in here. You're just an amazing person. Love your energy, wonderful smile. Just everything is going super great today. So thank you so very much for your time. And I look forward to our next one.
Thank you, Red. Such a privilege being here. Thank you again.
Catch y'all later on. That was Anne Scottlin on The Wise Ones today on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Next on Talking Heads is my show. It's talking about, actually today's the final topic on heart of health. And we've been talking a little bit about longevity, a little bit about heart disease, healthy heart, etc. So I'm wrapping everything up today, and we'll begin a new topic next week. So join me literally in a few minutes, about 18 minutes or so, 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. And the show is called Talking Heads, and red.olaughlin here signing off, and have a wonderful time. Take care. Bye now.
We face daily cyber risks, spending over 7 hours of screen time, including 4.5 hours on mobile phones. This convenience comes with significant dangers, with cybercrime costs predicted to exceed $10.5 trillion by 2025. In 2023 alone, seniors lost over $3.4 billion to cybercrime. Our goal is to make social engineering concepts of cybersecurity easier to understand. We work with business teams, senior living facilities, investment companies, and educational institutions, both individually and in groups. We offer real-life examples to help you recognize and prevent attacks, with sessions available both in person, in selected regions, and remotely. Schedule your training session, or to learn more, contact us today. Call us at 847-845-9360. Email us at info@cybersecurityeasy.com. Protect your team and family with cybersecurityeasy.com.
My name is Dr. Felix Kravitz, and I am the founder of cybersecurityeasy.com, LLC. We live in a world full of vulnerabilities and cyber risks. We spend almost 4.5 hours a day on our mobile phones. It's over 7 hours of screen time daily when including computer use. We often forget that this convenience comes with risks. Published data predicts that the cost of cybercrime will exceed $10.5 trillion in 2025. These numbers encompass not only businesses, but also each one of us, including our children and our parents. In 2023, the FBI reported over $3.4 billion lost by seniors aged 60 and older. Cybersecurityeasy.com LLC's initiative is to massively support the community by providing cyber safety coaching and improving social engineering awareness. Our goal is to make social engineering concepts of cybersecurity easier to understand. We work with business teams, seniors, and educational institutions, both individually and in groups. We cover various topics from phone phishing attacks to AI-generated voice cloning, robocalls, password protection, and more using life examples. Talk to us today. Call us at 847-845-9360 or email us at info@cybersecurityeasy.com.
5 little known secrets for dementia caregivers with Tracy Cram-Perkins.
Hi there, I am Tracy Cram-Perkins, the host of the Dementia Home Care Show here on USA Global TV and Radio. I am also the author of the book of the same name. And you'll see this QR code. This is for an extended version of the same talk. So if you want to see the full hour-long version, feel free to scan the code and go to that website. Stick with me. We'll talk about 5 little known secrets to make it a little easier to do dementia caregiving. What you're seeing on the left-hand side is a healthy aged brain, age 55 and above. The one you're seeing on the right is an Alzheimer's disease brain. It is in moderate disease. It is shrinking. It has holes in it. The memories that were in those holes no longer exist. When you're learning something, let's say in kindergarten, you learn how to tie your shoelace. Well, then by the time you're in 2nd grade, your brain remembers that information from tying the shoelace and applies it so you can learn more quickly how to tie more complex knots. So the brain is hardwired to do this for us, so it helps us learn faster so it doesn't take as long to acquire knowledge. The brain is looking for the information and they pick the closest to wherever that hole is. Let's look at some tips that we can use to help do that.
These are 5 simple tools you can use as a dementia caregiver to help your loved one. The whiteboard is a useful tool in recording the day's activities and the answers to repetitive questions. The calendar clock is a very useful tool to orient your loved one on the day, the date, and the time, and remind them of upcoming appointments. The communication cards are a great tool to bridge the gap when they can no longer tell you what's wrong. And then there's the pill minder for when your loved one is still able to take pills but needs prompting. The final tool I want to share with you is the memory book. It tells your loved one's story. It's a great tool for distraction, redirection, also as a conversation starter, and telling you where they are in their story so you know how to answer their questions.
Music is probably the most powerful tool in your toolbox after laughter. Music is a way to maintain connection. It sticks with your brain longer than any other thing, including reading. When you're having an issue with somebody, you can play their favorite music if you move them to another room, something that makes them happy, or you can start singing songs together from their childhood. These are some of my favorite books for caregivers. My show airs on the 3rd Tuesday of every month, and you can view past episodes on YouTube. Thank you, everyone.
This program has been brought to you in part by Tracy Cram Perkins. Connect with her and order her book at tracycramperkins.com. For more information about Alzheimer's disease, support resources, and how you can help, contact the Alzheimer's Association at 1-800-272-3900 or visit their website at www.alz.org. They offer 24/7 helpline support and a wealth of information to assist you and your loved ones.